Hello and welcome back to Beginner's Breakdown, I guess. So today we have our Terran player called Indy and our Protest player Use Passive. Now again, this is a replay that I found on Reddit, on the subreddit called All Things Terran, and essentially this Terran is asking how he could have won this game more decisively, I guess. So one piece of feedback I got from the last video is that maybe splitting them up into more than one video, so shorter videos, so that people can digest them a bit easier. So what I'm going to do is going to hopefully split this into 3 videos. One kind of looking at the build, giving some criticisms of the build and how generally this player could have improved. The second video will be focused around an all-in strategy, how this player could have transitioned into an all-in and when that could have happened. And the third video is going to be focused more on macro play, so when this player could have transitioned into a macro play. So I haven't actually seen this replay, and I haven't really thought about it too in depth. So hopefully we can spot some obvious flaws in it, and we can give some feedback to this Terran player. Let's go. Okay, we're going to watch it on ×2 speed. So generally when I'm watching a replay and kind of want to see how games are going, I put it on ×2 because faster is kind of slow to watch replays on. So we're getting a supply depot, always a good thing. Sending that scouting SCV out a bit earlier than I do, but that's fine. Getting a barracks, getting a refinery. Sending 3 guys into gas. So what I'm thinking right now is that Indy is going to open with a Reaper and then probably go into some sort of factory or a 2-1-1 build, which is kind of standard in this matchup. Okay, so building a marine. That marine was pretty late, but maybe he was banking on getting the command center a bit earlier. So we see we're not doing anything with our barracks. We're floating quite a lot of minerals. That reactor could have come down a lot sooner. Putting down a factory, we're going into a more conventional 2-1-1. Only putting 2 guys into gas there. I'm sure that will be fixed sometime soon. Building a bunker, always a good idea. Starport, reactor, great. Small build inefficiency there of building the barracks too close to the other barracks, which means that we couldn't build the tech lab straight away. 3 guys in gas now, so that's good. Seem to not be building marines. There we go. Building some liberators. Gonna get a bit supply blocked here. Building 2 supply depots. Now you have to remember with orbital commands that they can actually like drop supply, like we have done to this supply depot here. It's just something to keep in mind if you are supply blocked. Again, building the barracks a little close to our other barracks so that add-on can't come down straight away, kind of taking our APM away from what we actually want to be doing. Getting stim. Getting some really good damage with the Liberator. Floating quite a lot of minerals right now. Not building marines. There's the add-on going down, as I said. Building missile turrets. This is kind of confusing because we haven't seen any sort of DTs, haven't really seen any warp prism play. Building tanks, which is unconventional, I guess, but it's not the worst thing. Doing some drop play. Okay, so we're 6 minutes into the game and we haven't got a third base, we haven't got any additional building facilities. Wow. Yeah, okay. That drop did way more than it should have. Okay, now we're going for the expansion. That is very, very late. And we're putting it on the low ground, but not on the base, which is confusing to me. If you're going to build it on the low ground, you may as well just go and put it at the base. Building quite a lot of things. This is great. Floating a lot of minerals here. This is, you know, 1,600. We could afford a lot of things here. I think, like, generally just need more buildings. This is some cutesy play by our Protoss player, but the Terran player did quite a lot of damage. Those tanks coming into like some weird use there. I don't know if that's like what our Terran player, and those missile turrets. Oh man, this is weird. Okay, so yeah, I think like this was really weird because I kind of made the note of like, okay, these missile turrets are really weird because we haven't seen any DTs on Warp Prism play, but then they got a kill on the Warp Prism later on, and like these tanks were unconventional, but they helped like shell these zealots. Okay, so we did put down some extra barracks, but we are floating 2,785 minerals. So yeah, I'd say like I would probably class this as like a kind of mid-platinum level player, mostly because we couldn't spend our money. We didn't have a lot of production structures. Our upgrades went like kind of late. I mean, the thing that won this Terran player the whole game was this drop play and the Liberator play that killed like way too many probes for it to even like be sensible, to be honest. Again, I'm not like a big fan of this command center being here. I mean, if you're going to take this as your third base, then just put the command center here. Like, what is the big advantage? Because like, if the Protoss player attacked, he's going to attack from here, and then we'd have to like defend this, which is a very weak point for us. Like, we either want to generally defend on higher ground than our opponent, because it gives us an advantage of being able to see our opponent. When you're actually attacking up a ramp, you have less vision. So generally, like, if you're going to do this sort of shenanigans, you may as well like drop your command center here or here, you know, anywhere where there's room on the high ground, and then float it down to here or here, whichever's closer. Putting it on the low ground but not at the mining base is weird to me. I don't think there's much to say from like a micro aspect, which is nice. So we can kind of concentrate here on like the build, which is great. So I think what I'm going to do is have a look at when our Terran player started to float a lot of minerals. So generally what I like to do is kind of like scroll to an edge of the map, somewhere where absolutely nothing is happening, and kind of watch my minerals. I do this quite a lot, and then as soon as my minerals kind of go over a certain threshold, the number in my head is something like 400-500, because generally that's when you can afford a command center. I kind of look at the game and kind of see what's going on and why I'm not doing what I should be doing, which is building extra production structures or expanding. So here we go. Got try and put it on everyone's view so it doesn't say anything to us. So about okay, so we're kind of spending our minerals really well here. Got 100 going down to less than 100. This is great. This is exactly what we want to be doing. It's keeping our minerals and gas very low. Should be coming up here shortly. About around about the time when we are attacking a bit more, I believe. Okay, so we kind of keep our minerals really low until quite deep into the game, which is really nice. Okay, so here's where our minerals kind of spike. Okay, so again, in my head, something over 400 is quite big. So I kind of like to go into the game and say, okay, what's going on? So the Protoss player has some Stalkers. We've got this Liberator that we're playing around with. We've got this Liberator which we're playing around with. We don't seem to be building Marines. This was like one of the big things that I noticed about our Terran player, is that he kind of missed macro cycles a lot, which generally you try not to do. A great thing what you can do as well is, like, if you put your map on somewhere that isn't, like, hasn't got anything going on, and kind of watch the supply, and then when you get supply blocked, kind of go over to your base and say, okay, why did I get supply blocked here? I like to do that, because then you can say, okay, I was microing this Liberator, I was like microing this Liberator, and that's why I got supply blocked. So next time I can put into my mind, okay, when I send out these Liberators and I'm doing all of these fancy little things, I need to build 2 supply depots so that I don't get supply blocked. And that's a fine thing to do. Just building extra supply depots when you know that you're going to get supply, but like when you know that you get supply blocked at certain specific times of the game, is completely fine to do. I do it all the time. Yeah, so we don't build Marines for a long time. As I say, the tanks are a bit unconventional for a TVP. Generally, the kind of themes that you want to be going for is Marine, Marauder, Medevac, like putting in some Liberators if our opponent player, Protoss player, doesn't have any Colossus, then Liberators are very strong. If the Protoss player does have Colossus, then we want to be going Vikings. If our Protoss player is going like heavier Zealot Archon, then we can consider moving into Widow Mines, which I've seen in quite high level play. Yeah, so another thing I noticed as well is that these 2 barracks kind of came down and then had to lift and then plonk themselves back down to kind of build our add-ons. Now, I kind of spoke about this in my last beginner's breakdown video of, like, you should be kind of building your buildings so that they have enough space to build their add-ons. And generally add-ons take up like 2 building blocks. So if you have like the building like grid on, that generally helps. Generally, like, I think I said this as well, I like to build the building top left to bottom right. So the barracks would be here for me. So like this barracks wouldn't have to awkwardly lift up, move, drop down like 1 square to the left just so that it can fit an add-on between these buildings. It would just be like, it would say building complete, and then I'd, you know, slam down that add-on. So I guess like you're kind of questioning, what can we do with this money? And this is kind of what I want to get into, is what can we do with this? What can we do with this money? There's kind of like this fork in the road, and this generally, it happens earlier than the 529 time in a game of StarCraft 2 and Legacy of the Void, because Legacy of the Void minerals work a bit differently than Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, in that we generally get minerals faster because of how many workers we have at the start of the game. So what I'm talking about with the fork in the road is like, we have to kind of make a decision in what we actually want to go for. So there's we can either expand and go into a more macro oriented play, or we can throw down 3 more barracks and go into a more all-in type of play. I don't think I'll need 3 videos for this, thinking about it, because I think like that's generally it. Like here, like when we have these 400 minerals, if this player was generally the kind of thing I got from the poster was how could I win more decisively, and generally the way that you win more decisively here is just like planking, putting down 3 more barracks so that you have like a 6 barracks. Okay, yeah, you can do it with either like 6 or 7 barracks. I think because we've been building tanks, we're a bit behind on minerals. So if you like, you know, you'd build 4 more barracks here. Generally, you'd go like 1 reactor and all of the rest tech labs, and just absolutely pump. You'd get your 2 mining bases up to 16 workers, 6 on gas on each base, and you'd stop building workers. Get 4 extra barracks here, 1 reactor, all of the rest tech labs, and then just like absolutely hammer A, D, and like generally like at the 7-minute mark or something. I don't know the timing for this because I'm not as a big 7 racks player on 2 bases. You just push. Now, in some pro games, they like to pull workers, and this is just because like 7 racks is a massive commitment, especially on 2 bases. Generally, unless you do a lot of damage, like take out 2 bases, you're generally not gonna come back from a failed 7 racks all in. Okay, so if you want your push to have a bit more longevity, bring your workers, because as I say, you are not coming back from this attack. If you if you fail with your attack, or if the opponent sees it and just has too much splash damage, or too many sentries, or wherever your opponent may have to hold off this attack, you're not coming back. You cannot expand. There's too many production structures in your base. Like, you just can't afford it. So generally, like, pro players kind of know this and pull their workers so that, like, and the workers kind of give a bit more of a cushion between you and your opponent's units. So as I say, you just like box, and then box your bio, and then just click across the map and hope to get a good arc, which I spoke about in the last video. Another route that you can go down is literally just expand right now. Like, just put down a command center. To be honest, I would have liked to see Out of Terran player do this much earlier in the game. As I say, 529 is not the time in which you want to be doing this. It's actually quite a bit earlier in the game, and I think it's because of this tank play. So what we want to be doing is just like putting down or it might be this extra racks, because generally if you're going for a more macro oriented play, you do the 2-1-1, the 2 racks, 1 factory, 1 starport, and then you expand, because that's enough production structures to keep you alive, but not enough that it will make you broke all the time. As I say, with like the 16 workers, the 7 racks will just make you broke. Like, that's why I say, if you're gonna go for it, bring your workers, because you're not coming back, and I doubt that you can afford tanks. So yeah, if we, instead of this barracks, we build a command center, and then the problem with this is, like, from the post, it feels like the player wants to win more quickly, and this is more like a longer term strategy, so I don't feel like I should go too deep into this. But generally, don't build this barracks, build a command center, float it to the low ground, build 5 barracks, including these 2. So 3 more barracks back here to give you 5 barracks to keep you alive while you saturate this 3rd base. And once that 3rd base is saturated, then you can go up to 2 starports with 8 barracks. Generally, that's a good number, and once you're on that 8 barracks, 2 starport production, pump in 2 engineering bases as well. Pump in those upgrades. Generally, when you're running out of minerals in your main base, you can expand to your 4th base, and then play out the longer term game. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is kind of try to watch it on a faster speed, so faster, and kind of watch the production structures, because I'll kind of fast forward it until this player has production structures, because that would be dumb if I didn't. Because one thing I noticed is that like here, we're not building anything. We can afford a Reaper, we can afford a Marine. I'm guessing what has happened here is that the player wants to save up until the command center is down, but generally that's not a good idea, because you want this scouting probe to die as soon as possible. So getting out that Reaper or getting out that Marine before you put this down is generally a good idea. We were not building SCVs for a long time. Again, here we're not building anything. Generally, you want to consistently build things out of your production structures as Terran to kind of keep you safe, keep you alive versus any sort of attack. So we're building a factory, building a refinery, we're still not building anything out of. Okay. This is interesting to me because this player wanted to put a reactor on this barracks. Now, if we go back and then back again, when this marine was first built, okay, so a reactor costs 50 minerals and 50 gas. We have 100 minerals and 160 gas. What is stopping us from putting this down now, just straight away? Okay, so generally with the 211, if you're going to go barracks into factory, you kind of want the factory down as fast as possible. So as soon as we hit 150 minerals, it should be put down, and here or here, depending on whether you want to switch it for the reactor. So this is kind of what I thought when watching the game, is that he was waiting for the 150 minerals to put down the factory, but you can see that right here is where we get 150. At 2 minutes 13 we have enough to build a factory, but we don't build the factory until like a couple of minutes later. So let's see when we build that factory. Okay, right here is where we build the factory at 2:26. Now another problem, and this is kind of a smaller problem, but like it becomes a bigger problem when you get into bigger, like more advanced leagues, is that they kind of boxed a SCV with a mineral in its hand, as you can see. So that's minerals you're not going to get back to the command center until this building is complete. But that's not the biggest egregious thing. You know, people do that all the time. You could have boxed this worker, and that would have been a little better because like this worker has minerals in its hand. But the bigger thing is that you kind of boxed your workers and then placed it all the way over here. Now, watching the replay, you go for a starport, and that's fine. But what's kind of stopping you boxing an SCV and just building it like right here? Because this is a shorter travel distance for the SCV. This SCV kind of has to come off these minerals and travel all the way over here just to start this building, which means it's even later. Like, we started building it at 2:25, but it actually doesn't start construction until, and that marine was in the way, 2:30. Okay, so that's a whole 5 seconds of the marine, the SCV having to come off of minerals to build this building. That marine in the way was painful, because that has happened to me so many times. But do you see what I mean? Like, if you box your worker and just put it here, it would have taken like 2 seconds. And the other thing is that you just didn't build it fast enough. I mean, you know, when did we say that we had the 150 minerals? It was somewhere around 219 or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm sorry. But then the factory, the factory didn't come down until 2:25, and then it didn't start building until 2:30. Okay, and then same with the reactor, but this is kind of a more acceptable one. Is that you built the racks across the supply depots to stop any like zealot all-ins early game, and then we are lifting the barracks and then putting a reactor on. But as I say, this is horrendously late. This could have started a long time ago. and this barracks, so we're at 95 minerals. Pouring down that factory. This SCV could have built that factory as it was returning. Yeah, this SCV goes down, building the factory, and like again, this barracks could have been constructed a long time ago, and then again we're kind of boxing an SCV out of the mid section of our SCV line and making the SCV travel from like dead center of our mineral line to all the way over here. So we kind of told him to build it at 233, and then it doesn't start construction until 237. Okay, that's a long time. That is a long time. So generally what I like to do is like send the SCV a couple of minerals early, like even if it's like too early and the SCV is waiting around for like a couple of seconds, that's still better than this, right? Because now you have units coming out a lot slower. But as I said before, this is actually way too close to this barracks. You put a add-on on this barracks straight after it's done. So why is it here? Why is it not like anywhere else in your main base? Like over here, great place. Over here is like even better. Here is fine. But you put it right next to the other barracks, and that means it has to lift awkwardly and then place back down to put a tech lab on. And that means like 3-4 seconds of wasted construction, like wasted lifting landing time. I know like these sound very nitpickish, but they add up. Okay, so like the factory being like 10 seconds late, and then 5 seconds because the SCV had to move in order to build it. So that's like 7 seconds lost. The barracks at the front of our base having to lift and land, that's 3 seconds. So that's like 10 seconds there, and again like 4 seconds for the next barracks to like lift and land. So that's like 14 seconds, and all of these small time saves kind of add up when we get further into the game. Like if we get supply blocked and are not building a supply depot, like a supply depot takes 21 seconds to build, right? So say if we forgot, okay, so we forgot one supply depot right now, seeing as we're like 14 seconds behind, that would be 35 seconds that we were behind by the time that supply depot is built. Do you see like how outrageous this amount of time that you're not doing anything is adding up? So I'm sorry that I went on that kind of long tangent, but I think it was worth it, just to show these small little like mistakes and how they can kind of add up. So that is more like it. Right there is what I want to see, right? Like as soon as this factory is done, so we put it to normal speed, right? Maybe faster for a little while. Okay, so the factory is done, and then what do? Skadoosh. Like as soon as that factory is done, we're putting an add-on on and we're building a starport. This is what I want to see, but from every production structure, not just this production structure. Like that was probably 2 seconds where the SCV is idle, but that was absolutely perfect. And it's like one box off, but I'm not going to go into that, I'm sorry. because I think that was perfectly fine. Okay, our barracks is now done, and then we have to lift it and put it back down, which loses us 2-3 seconds. Okay, so now we kind of stare at our macro, right? So to do this, we select all of our production structures, we put it on faster 2 and faster, and then we see that we're not building anything. We are 3 minutes into the game and we're not building anything. And we don't build anything. Okay, we're building a Liberator. Okay, so that was 3 minutes 35, I think. So we build these 4 Marines, and then we don't build anything else out of either production structure. So right here, when the units finish, it's 3:54, right? And then we don't build anything but a Liberator. 3:54. And the next time we'll build something is in the distant future. Here we go. 3:54, and now we're on 4:09. Okay? That's a long time to not build anything. And even when we're building something, we're not building out of all of our production structures. We're actually only building out of one production structure. There we go. Okay. That was a misspeak, I guess, because I paused it at the wrong time. Having one extra is not bad. I do this all the time. So much easier to queue things and to like know when things are going to be done. We can afford stim. We can afford combat shield. Why are we not building these things? And now we get a supply block, which puts us further behind. We kind of call one in from our orbital command. That is a good idea. Not building anything out of one of our production structures. We kind of start stim half-heartedly and then we cancel it. Or we started something I didn't see, I'm sorry. We're not building anything. Not building anything. So you can kind of see these small things kind of adding up over time. And this is generally what I like to do, is like watch in lower leagues, is just watch production structures, watch supply counts, watch minerals kind of rise, and generally these are the things that you have to work on if you're looking to get better at this game. So again, we're not building out of one of our production structures. So one of the things that I like to do, pause this game for a second. One of the things that I like to do when I'm playing Terran is to have like I see that you have 1-2 as your hotkeys here. I generally like that's fine. I think that's fine. Having like any hotkeys at this level is perfectly fine. So I like to have my command centers and engineering bays and any upgrade facility on 4. And then all of my production structures, so like this, on 5. So most people use a method known as tapping to kind of check on how things are doing. So throughout a game, you kind of like press 1 or 4 for me to check SCVs. So I would press 4 and I would see that I've only got one SCV going, so I would press 4S and have this build another SCV, and then I would press 5 and check on my Marines. I see that there's no Marines building, so I press AAA, and there's nothing out of my other production structures. I don't generally build things out of my factory in TVP, so I normally have something that looks like this, which is barracks and starport. So I would go AAA, tab, DD, or NN, I think it is for Liberator. Yes, it's N. And then as soon as that is done, like after I press 5 AAA tab DD, I would press 4 again and check on how my SCVs are doing, and that is basically the game is going 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check. And if you need to build something, you build it. If you don't need to build something, that's fine. And then that is like a good thing to get down, like almost straight away. It's like 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check, and you need to have that, like, this beat in your head that never stops of like 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check. And as soon as you have that in your head, then you can add things to it, so that becomes like a constant beat in the back of your head is 4 check 5 check 4 check 5 check. And then you can like add to that later on of like 4 check 5 check supply depots, 4 check 5 check supply depots, 4 check 5 check supply depots, 4 check 5 check supply depots. And then, like, you know, you can build into it over time of like 4 check 5 check supply depots mules, 4 check 5 check supply depots mule, you know. So again, we're not doing anything for a long time here. We're kind of being fancy with the Liberator. We're going to ignore that for now. We've got our new structure, and also we're not building any SCVs, and we're not fully saturated. We're 12, 14. So we've had to lift another barracks. We're building turrets, but we're going to kind of ignore that. Still not building anything. This is really painful because now we see that our money is kind of catching up to us. So generally, like, when you're building like constantly, you'll find that you're broke most of the time, and that's where you want to be, is like broke. Generally, like, the time in which you aren't broke is when you have 3-4 bases and you know you're attacking all over the map, you're dropping everywhere. Like, that is when you don't want to be broke, is later on into the game. Again, if I'm going to comment about the build again, these missile turrets are a bit strange because we haven't seen any DT play and we haven't seen any Warp Prism play. Generally, I like to build things after something happens. Like, I like to have a missile turret at my front just in case DTs are going to be a thing in the game. But unless I see a Warp Prism, I will never build a missile turret because I haven't seen that as a threat. Like, missile turrets are 100 minerals. So this is 1 to 300 minerals. Okay, so if we built one more missile turret, then we've skipped building a base. There is 400 minerals that could have gone into a base, or could have gone into production structures, right? Or could have gone into these marines that we're not building. So again, not building anything. This is actually really painful, but this is exactly what you want to do, is like look at these buildings and look at yourself and how you macro, and really like dig into like how you play the game to kind of know where to improve. So this cycle of marines have finished, but we're not building anything. I heard a stim, I'm going to ignore it. Good news is that we are building quite rapidly out of our factory. I heard a supply depot call. We are dangerously close. So yeah, I hope you can like look at this and tell yourself that here's a place where I can improve. Like, this is this is a viable thing that I can see right now. I'm not building anything ever. It's 7 minutes into the game and we're at 93 supply. That is really low. I don't generally hold myself to any target when it comes to like playing. Like at 7 minutes I need to get like 100 supply count or something, okay? I don't try to hold myself to that because each build kind of varies. With a 2-1-1, 93 at 7 minutes is quite low. It's quite low. Especially if we're going for an all-in play, which you may have gotten, which generally if we're on 2 bases at 7 minutes, it kind of tells me that we're probably not going to go into the late game. We're kind of floating 1900 minerals, and again we can build more production structures, but generally the thing I want to take away from this game is that we just need to macro out of the production structures that we have. I think we get like really lucky at the other end of the map with Liberator play and drop play. So yeah, I was going to say sometimes I get that players get distracted by what they're doing and you know, don't macro, but it's all about that tapping motion that I talked about before. When you're attacking, you don't stop with the tapping. So you attack in 4-check, 5-check, attack in 4-check, 5-check, EMP. Like as I say, you build it up and build it up for like certain cases. I also noticed that we don't have a lot of vision on the map. Like we don't know whether this Protoss player has gone for a 3rd or 4th base. Generally at 5 minutes, that's at higher leagues, like people go for those sort of bases. We're building a lot of Marauders, but not a lot of Marines. We're going for an armory. Generally good. Yep. We are reporting for action. So, I think what I'll do is, as I said before, when we were at 7 minutes 30, okay, this is our benchmark. So what we've done here is gone for a conventional 2-1-1, okay. So we built some barracks, we built a factory into a starport, and then we built some tanks, and then we got to 93 supply. Okay, so I am actually going to, and now I'm thinking that I'm going to split it into 2 videos. So the second video will be me demonstrating kind of going to the 7 minute 30 mark, kind of analysing the differences between me and this replay, and hopefully we can see how it varies. Cool. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video.